A few months ago, I sat down at my desk, excited to work on my game. I opened up Unity, ready to create something amazing, and then just nothing. I stared at my screen, overwhelmed. The project list was just way too big, my to-do list just way too long, and I didn't even know where to get started. So I did what any motivated game developer would do. I started a new project. It felt exciting for a day, maybe two, and then the cycle started to repeat. I felt stuck again, trapped in a loop, starting over, and just going nowhere. And if you felt like this before, you're not alone. I mean, geez, I think it happens to probably 95% of us. I'm pretty sure that's a real statistic. This is what's called work paralysis or workload paralysis, or even called task paralysis. And I found out a way to break free, and today I'm going to share with you how you can do that too. Work paralysis hits all of us at some point. It's that feeling that you're staring at your project and you're unsure of what to do next. And you know that there's just so much work to be done, but your brain just decides to take a vacation. And so for me, I really started to break down, like, why do I do this so often? And it really came down to three main reasons for me personally. The first reason is perfectionism. I just really want everything to be perfect. I want every task to feel like it can be done flawlessly, which really started to make starting the project terrifying. The second thing was that I had no clear direction. My to-do list was way too chaotic, and I didn't know which task to actually start or even which one really mattered. And then the third thing was that I kept doubting myself. I would ask these questions around like, am I even good enough for this yet? Because I'm not sure how to pull off procedural generation. So I started to notice this cycle going on and on and on and on again. And so one day I just said, wait a minute, let's just stop everything. And so I'm going to try something different. So instead of tackling a huge task, which was on my task list of add enemy AI, I told myself, you know what, let's break this down into like one small thing. What's the smallest thing that I can do right now to get a win? Because I was just going through days and days and days of no wins, no progress, and just feeling like a failure. And so I picked a tiny thing. My player's character was just feeling really floaty whenever it jumped. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go into the code and I'm going to make an adjustment. I'm going to actually make it easier for myself. I'm going to make sure that this is exposed to the inspector in Unity, and that way I can adjust this value. And I hit play and it worked. I mean, obviously that's a very, very small step. It wasn't much, but it was something. And that one step actually led to the next thing. And so I started to work on the next thing for my player character. And then it started to get into the actual enemies, and I had some momentum going. So from that moment, I started focusing on just small, manageable steps. So taking a task, you can make it larger, but break it down into a subtask, which is really just a series of steps to get that task done. So I realized that I didn't really need to tackle the entire mountain all in one go. I just needed to take one step forward. Now, there is a little bit of a problem that comes from that, is you might think about the next step and what you need to do for that. And what I do find myself doing as well is thinking about the next step beyond that and going, well, if I do this now, I'm going to run into the problem with the next step. And so I need to go over here and fix this thing. Let's not do that, because I started doing that, and that's perfectionism just kind of stepping in. And I need to make sure that the series of steps is perfect as well. And it's really important to remember that progress doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be progress. So the next thing is just the power of playtesting your game. If you're not really sure of what to do next, you can just pick up the controller or your keyboard and mouse and start playing your game, and just play it as if you were the player. The first bug that you come across, the first thing that feels clunky, go ahead and start tackling that. Break down that task into subtasks and just start doing something small. So instead of getting discouraged and just starting a new project, I picked one thing to improve. And so I focused on making the controls feel responsive. And once that was done, I moved on to adding sound effects to the player actions, and each tiny improvement made the game feel more alive, and it kept me motivated and kept me going. And so, like I said, one step that you take can lead to other steps, and you really start to get into your flow state. So the key lesson that I learned from this was that when you're in doubt of what to do next, just play your game. Let your game show you what needs your attention, and you can start to build your task list from that. Then the next problem that I ran into was that there's this problem of the shiny new ideas. You know that feeling. You're working on your project, but then suddenly a new idea pops into your head and it feels so much better than what you're currently working on. So what I used to do was just drop everything and chase those ideas. I'd create a new project and then get started on that and feel very good about it. But what I decided to do differently this time was that I was going to write down that idea in an idea vault. And so what I do is I keep just a small notebook within arm's reach of all time. It's in my car, it's with me all the time, and I write those things down. Now, you could use whatever mode you want for writing down these ideas, put it in your phone, put it in a Google Doc, whatever that might be. I prefer a notebook because I'm in the digital world all the time. And so doing something physical like writing my tasks down in a notebook really helps me to feel like I'm accomplishing something. Now, by doing this, I gave myself permission to explore new ideas later without abandoning my current project. So the key lesson that I got out of this was that I would save my new ideas for later, and then my current project, giving it the recognition that it deserves to actually be finished. Now, once I had these strategies, I started to build a system for me to move forward. Systems are a great way to keep yourself accountable. And here's what worked for me. I start every session with a tiny task, no matter how small it is, something small, even so small that it's impossible to fail. Writing that task down and just getting the ball rolling really, really helps. The second thing that I do is I use time blocks. So this is really whenever I'm having a hard time getting into creating tasks or even moving into tasks, is I use time blocks, and I use the Pomodoro technique where I would work for 25 minutes and then take a short 5 to 10 minute break. But I would be very meticulous about what those times are. I created a timer on my Stream Deck to where I have a 25-minute block and it has an alarm on it. And then immediately after that, I hit the 10-minute break thing and then come back as soon as that's ready and then start working on my next task for the 25 minutes. Now, the third thing is really, really important, and that is celebrating your progress. Because at the end of the day, I would write down what I had finished and reflect on that, even if it's just one thing. For me personally, I really get a good sense of accomplishment out of getting things done and having just a great day of work. And so this can manifest itself in a way of no 0 days. That's one way that someone will celebrate their progress, is to make sure that they do at least just one thing. And then when they get that done, celebrate by doing something like playing a game or whatever that might be. Now, these habits help me stay consistent, and consistency is what gets games finished. Habits are like the antidote to work or task paralysis. Now, work paralysis is tough, but it doesn't have to stop you. Start small, play your game, write down your ideas for later, and most importantly, just keep moving forward one tiny step at a time, because that one tiny step is likely to lead to the next step and the next step and getting into that flow state of game creation. So here's your challenge. What's the next tiny step that you can take right now? That could be writing down the task, doing the task, fixing a bug, whatever it is, write it down and do it. So if this video resonated with you, share your story in the comments. And if you're ready to take control of your tasks, check out the free task breakdown template that I have for you. It's linked below in the video. And remember, progress beats perfection every single time. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.